Really, with perimenopause, it's that zone of chaos, we call it. And then it goes on. It's fatigue, anxiety, concentration, rage. This is not something that somebody will tell you, I don't believe in that, because this is not like Santa Claus that you have to believe in. This is like science and real. Does the culture in the workplace allow her to speak? Number one. My hope is that the men don't just say or assume it's aging or it's just stress. The sad statistic I've heard is it takes a woman 6 to 7 providers before finding someone that will help them with their perimenopause and menopause symptoms. 1 in 3 women have considered cutting hours or stepping back from leadership.
What happens when a highly capable woman suddenly can't sleep, can't focus, or can't find the right word in an important meeting? At work, those moments do not always get interpreted as health issues. They can be interpreted as stress, burnout, a lack of confidence, or worse, that she's no longer as sharp or capable as she used to be. That is why perimenopause belongs in a conversation about women in leadership. It often arrives during the exact years women are leading teams, running businesses, competing for promotions, and being expected to perform at their highest level. And yet, many women do not recognize what is happening. I know because I was one of them. Today's guest, Dr. Caissa Troutman, is a quadruple board-certified physician with more than 20 years of clinical experience. She specializes in menopause care and women's midlife health. And through her practice, Midlife Remedy, she helps women better understand and address the changes affecting their sleep, energy, concentration, hormones, and overall health. Dr. Troutman is not only our guest today, she is also my doctor. In this episode, we talk about how perimenopause can affect sleep, concentration, confidence, and credibility at work, why so many women dismiss the symptoms, and why there is no medal for simply powering through. This is not about women becoming less capable. It is about understanding what is happening before we or everyone around us mistakes it for decline. Let's get into it. Welcome to Loud and Lifted, Dr. Caissa Troutman. I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, I'm so thrilled to be here in your podcast as well, Betsy.
So I love when things come full circle. And this is one of these conversations that has come full circle to me, because our listeners may see the topic of this conversation and be like, wait, this is a women in leadership podcast. Why are we talking about perimenopause? Like, how is this connected? And the irony is how I got introduced to you was at a women in leadership networking event where there's a bunch of women sitting around the table talking about running their own businesses and the struggles and the challenges. And within, 15 minutes maybe of this conversation, suddenly we go down this rabbit hole of perimenopause and how it's impacting all these women sitting around the table who are various ages. Yeah. And someone named you that you were the savior of their day. And so that's how we got here, right? And we'll get into a little bit about my conversations with you. But it's wild. Part of it I know is my age, but perimenopause is this word that we're hearing a lot nowadays. And let's start with really being very clear of what does that even mean?
Yes, I'd love that we start there. But I want to say though that of course, even if this is a business podcast, it will absolutely affect all women, right?
100%.
We are our business. How healthy you are, how amazing you are, is how you're going to run your business. So if we are operating from a non-healthy approach, then yes, our businesses will suffer. But okay, I just want to say that.
Don't worry, we have a whole big topic on that. We'll get into that. You're right.
Love that we're starting with definitions, right? So before we describe perimenopause, I think it's easier for people to know what menopause is. So menopause is literally one day which is 12 months after our last menstrual period. And basically that is the outward symptom when we don't have periods for a year. But the cellular level, in a biological level, what it simply means is the ovaries are not producing estrogen anymore. Okay. And then the days and years after that one day is postmenopause. And the years before that one day is perimenopause. So literally perimenopause is a transition. It encompasses years of a woman's life. And it is the reason why it's so talked about and why it's very confusing for a lot of women, even a lot of doctors, is because there is no one set definition. There are definitions of how we use it or how we would describe it, which is irregular periods. That's
Mm.
usually the first sign. But the reality is, the lived experience of women in perimenopause is they have symptoms other than irregular periods and heavy periods. And those symptoms happen way before period irregularity happens. I know that was a mouthful. So,
No, that's good. No, that's super helpful. Well, and it's funny. Again, I'm 47, right? So this is like hot topic around every table,
yes.
and it's wild. And I think back to like when my mom was my age. Like I remember her talking about menopause, and it was just hot flashes, and it was moodiness, right? Like that's all I knew growing up. You know, as a woman, of like this is this menopause thing. When I don't get my period anymore, I have hot flashes, and I'm going to be a little bit of a bee. Apparently, at least that was my experience as a daughter. But there's so much more to it, and
Yeah.
if I kind of go back into that conversation that I mentioned in the beginning of where these women were sitting around, it impacts how we show up. So
100%.
if
Yeah.
someone's sitting here and they're in their 40s, even late 30s, chances are they're probably in perimenopause, correct? What do those signs or symptoms look like?
Yes. So first of all, average age of US adults of perimenopause is 47, but it can start as early as 35. Okay. And for 10% of US women, it actually starts before 35.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So there is earlier perimenopause. So I always like to start with that because honestly, before I got into what I do now in women's health, I thought menopause was like an old person thing,
Yes.
like the 60s, like golden girls,
Yep.
not me, right?
No.
Not 35-year-old me, but 35-year-old me was happy symptoms, right? So anyway, so symptoms, I love that question. So the way I would kind of answer that would be to refer people to a paper that came out in Menopause 2024. A journal article came out. And the authors interviewed 1,300 women aged 35 to 55. They asked them one question. In the last 3 months, how often did you not feel like yourself?
Oh,
That was their question. And almost like 300 women answered 50% of the time they did not feel like themselves. Okay. And
wow.
almost like 100 plus women said every day for the last 3 months, I did not feel like myself.
That's so sad.
That is right. That is what I call the lived experience of women in perimenopause. Okay. So the authors went even deeper and asked them, what do you mean by you don't feel like yourself? What are the symptoms you're having? Just to answer your question.
Mhm.
The number one symptom? It was fatigue.
I was going to say tired. Yes. Oh,
Yes.
that's so
Yes.
weird. I wonder why I know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, right? And then it goes on. It's fatigue, anxiety, concentration, rage, kind of overwhelm. Yeah. So it's all those like we call mood and energy and brain symptoms.
Mm,
Hot flashes was on the list, but it was at the bottom of the list, right?
interesting.
So again, perimenopause, it's not just about period irregularity, although that is how we officially define it. Well, I think as we get to know more about studying women in general, because again, women haven't really been studied
Which is wild.
historically, because it's not like perimenopause is new; it didn't just pop
Right.
up.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. So fatigue, that's the number one symptom that patients. But again, it could be head to toe. I mean, could be if I go from head to toe, I'm just going to ramble it here. Like skin, hair changes, hair loss, skin dryness, skin itchiness, dry mouth. You have palpitations and mood, anxiety, trouble sleeping, concentration, brain fog. Let's see, joint pain, liver is affected, cholesterol goes up, blood pressure goes up, your sugar goes up. I mean, and so of course we can't forget about libido changes, decreased desire, even if you still love your partner, like your partner, just the desire is gone, painful sex, your frequent bladder infections, and so on and so forth. I think they've
Oh,
got, I think
Lord.
it's like 150 symptoms or something like
Oh
that.
my gosh.
Yeah.
That's it's so depressing. It's so,
Which again will also
right.
goes to show how it is a clinical diagnosis, because if you've heard one menopause story or perimenopause story, you've only heard one perimenopause story.
Sure.
Like
Sure.
my story is
It's
different
different.
than other people's story because we all have different symptoms in like genetics.
Sure. So, it's funny. We talk about hormones, and again, I have teenagers. So I feel like we talk about hormones when it's like, oh, teenagers or, raging hormones or whatever. But what's happening to our hormones during perimenopause? Like, why does this happen?
Yeah. So again, the idea behind this is the ovaries start to lose steam. So we're all born with a certain number of ovaries. I'm sorry, of follicles, and as we get older, the ovary stops producing the follicles, and hence estrogen. So what happens is we get those. It's not producing estrogen, and then it's like there's a surge of like, oh my gosh, we got to make more estrogen. So we get those highs and then we get those lows. So really, with perimenopause, it's that zone of chaos, we call it, right? Meaning, today my level could be high, and like 1 week from now it could be low, and then 2 weeks from now it could be like high again. So it is the irregularity of the hormone swings that defines peri. And
Hmm.
menopause is we don't have any more of the hormones. Like estrogen is out the building, as we know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I have no issue sharing my story around this, because I think it's important that we talk about it. And one of the reasons why I called you after that conversation at the breakfast table with a bunch of women is because not knowing that those were symptoms, number one, right? And I was living in like a stressful time in my life, right? Things were really crazy at my past job. I have a sick dad. I have all these things going on, right? Like there's a lot of stress and anxiety in my life that was just seemed normal, and I would have this like constant anxiety, and I had major issues sleeping. Like I felt like a baby sleeping through the night. I had that 3 a.m. wake up, just sort of can't go back to sleep. Your head is racing, your heart is racing, everything is just, sleep just suddenly was out the window. And I was just like, oh, it's just because I'm stressful. It's just because I have a lot going on. There's these issues. And I would just be very dismissive of it and hope that maybe the next month or two would be better. And now we're like a year or so into this, and this is still happening, and things are calming down in my life, like those outside influences, and it's still like not sleeping and that constant anxiety. And I never connected that until sitting at this table that was even an issue. So I remember the first time I came in and I was like, sleep, stress, anxiety. And you're like, so talk through that, how a lot of times as women, because, we're in our 40s, we're under a lot of pressure and stress,
Yes.
professionally and personally, how that impacts us and how we sort of mistake those signs.
Yes. And I think this is where awareness is key to knowing what happens. So, for example, puberty, right? We all know, okay, puberty, I will expect my teenage daughter to be a little kind of annoying, right? Like we know
Mhm.
that.
Yep.
But
Yep.
for women, like for perimenopause, menopause, we don't know that, or I should say a lot of people don't know it, because again we just associate, oh, it's hot flashes and not having my period. That's what they associate. So and in terms of like stress, anxiety, and sleep, again we just talked about those are the more common presenting symptoms for women. So and here's how I kind of look at it, right? I'm not saying perimenopause is the problem, or hormone therapy is a solution to everything, but what if it's not just stress? What if it's not just aging? Because that is typically what providers who are not as well versed with perimenopause and menopause would tell patients that are seeking help, right? I would say, like, we know these things, the external circumstances, stress, life, and being your own boss and having your company, and et cetera, et cetera. We know that they are real stressors. And so the way I was like, but what if it's not just that, right? Because the way to see, and honestly, the way to see is
Hmm.
to try treatment. That's kind of like the one way I would know. And that's what I tell my patients when they come into my office, right? I say, I'm not saying this will fix everything, but if your symptoms are because of this menopausal transition, that, oh, by the way, it's going to happen to 100% of women who live long
Right.
enough. This is not like a rare thing,
Right.
right? This is not something that somebody will tell you, I don't believe in that, because this is not like Santa Claus that you have to believe in. This is like
Right.
science and real, right? And again, because it can range from 35 to 50, like 52, like that's 2 decades of possibility.
It's
So yes, and
crazy.
what do we know about that time of our lives? Usually we are at the peak of our careers. Usually we are handling children and parents, or elderly. We call that sandwich generation. So
Mhm.
absolutely we will have all those stressors. And of course, we'll have anxiety, stress. But again, what if the symptoms you're having, the anxiety, the trouble sleeping, the trouble concentration, the anger, the overwhelm, what if it's not just a stress? What if it's because it is a biological reason?
Mm.
That's it. So
Yeah.
that's all as menopause physicians, really, it's just, what if it's biology? Because if it's biology, I can help you.
Right.
Right?
No, that's so true, and because it has an impact on us, right? When we said why are we talking about menopause and perimenopause on a Women in Leadership podcast? Because it impacts how we show up if we're not sleeping at night and we have this constant anxiety. And then we didn't even mention really the brain fog, because we talk about pregnancy, right? I remember thinking that when I was pregnant, like, oh my God, the words would just literally like leave your brain, and that happens. Again, that happens here. So if a woman's going through this and she's showing up at work and she's blanking in a meeting because either A, she's exhausted, or B, it's just that brain fog, like that's impacting our credibility at work, that people are going to start being like, what is wrong with her?
Right. Yeah, I call it like the silent tax.
Mm.
Because if we're not, if number one, if we're not aware that those symptoms are because of this biological, I keep saying biological because it really is biological. This
Sure.
biological, it's a tax, right? Because we just quote unquote blame ourselves. Oh, I should just push more. I should just try this. I should, do X, Y, Z. This is also, for brain fog concentration. I remember one of my patients like literally has like post-its everywhere to try and remember kind of the things that she's, that I don't know if that's your experience, or just like, again, normally that's their superpower. Their superpower is doing 5 things at the same time, right?
Yep.
And now barely even able to do that one task. So that it's a big hit on our confidence as leaders and as business owners.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're sitting in a meeting or even if you're presenting, even worse, right? And you just have that blank moment. And well, yes, we all do that. Men do that too. But, I've had that fear and that panic. And again, I have a dad with dementia. So I have a whole other level of paranoia about having memory issues. So it's like, oh my gosh, when that was happening, it's like that fear and that panic and not looking like an idiot. And again, losing that credibility at work, like it absolutely can impact you professionally. And people don't know what's going on, whether it's men or women that are around there. So why do you think, or do you see this, that we have an issue like talking about it sort of from a professional standpoint? Because it's a dilemma, right? And again, a lot of these women are in leadership positions or running their own business or, high up in a company. So how do we handle that stigma at work? How do you suggest handling that professionally?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it all depends on is the workplace a menopause or perimenopause friendly workplace? It's kind of, so meaning if in that workplace is talking about symptoms allowable? Does the culture in the workplace allow her to speak? Number one. Number two, are there systems in place to get help and treatment? Right. I think the first step really is talking about it. And again, this is not saying talking about it in like a big meeting. I don't, you should never be required to give medical information,
Sure.
of course. But I think it just maybe even starting with the impact, right? I haven't slept well and this has affected blank,
Sure.
something like that, without divulging any kind of like medical stuff.
Right. Yeah, because if you want to see a room full of guys get real quiet, I mean, I used to be in meetings where if women started talking even about like, oh, I like your hair. It looks like, you can see the guys rolling back in their chairs and like, oh my God, they're talking about hair or clothes or shoes. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's tough for men. So if we're if you're sitting in a conference room and there's men in there, I really think it's probably not going to be super well received if you start talking about perimenopause specifically. But to your point, the sleep piece and tying it to that, I think has a little bit of a different perspective.
So you're right. It's an uncomfortable conversation for guys, but it's interesting. I think guys absolutely should still be involved and be aware of the conversation. So I remember when I was giving a talk at Alabama, and after the talk, a guy came up to me and said, "Oh my God, it makes so much sense now after your talk what my wife is going through."
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Probably that was the first talk that he sat through because he was required to sit there.
Right.
And listen, as opposed to his wife talking about the symptoms. You know what I mean? So I think because again, even though it affects just women, which, oh, by the way, is 51% of the population, right?
Right.
Like we all know, a guy will know a mom, a coworker, a sister, a niece, a daughter that will be going
Absolutely.
through it. So
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think I said to you that one time I was in your office, I was like, you need to start doing content on social for
right, you
men
did say
that we
that.
can record little 2-minute videos because they know something is going on, right? But they don't know what, and they don't really even know what questions to ask. And maybe they're gonna just attach it to mood or something like that. But at the end of the day, they need to understand what's going on too.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, a
They
hundred
they
percent.
survived having to go through the whole, having babies and everything else. So this is fine. This isn't bad.
I think if I was going to say something about that, my hope is that the men don't just say or assume it's aging or
Mm,
it's just stress or the same things that we get told. Like, what if this is kind of this by law? So maybe just having them keep that open, or maybe even just asking their partners, like,
sure.
what are you feeling?
Yeah.
You know,
Just make sure you ask it on the right day.
on the right day.
Just kidding. Be
No,
careful how you ask that.
I remember. So a lot of my patients would say this feeling of this anger, anxiety, and rage. Like they would literally say, like, I know I'm not. I know this is not right, but I see myself reacting negatively.
Oh,
Like, they
yeah.
just and again, that's part of like when it's not under our direct control necessarily because of hormonal changes.
No, that makes sense. So we laid a lot out there, but let's talk about, and you teed this up, there's solutions. So what do some of those solutions look like? And how do you even go through this process, right? If someone's listening to this and they're like, oh, this is definitely me. Like how do they move forward? How do they reach out? Like what's just kind of that process when someone has identified, I need to have a conversation with someone about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first, if you're a woman 35 and over, and in some of the symptoms or the things that we talk about kind of resonate, the first step is seeking a provider that is familiar with what perimenopause and menopause is. Um, and then from there, and so again, that's a loaded question, right? Because because there are providers that, again, I mean, I've heard this from my own patients, like they don't believe in perimenopause, or they have their understanding of what perimenopause is, and is slightly outdated because again they're just basing it on period irregularity, meaning if they're still having their period, oh, you don't need treatment, is kind of what my patients say. So I think find a caring, competent provider that will listen to you
Mm-hmm.
and help you understand what are you in perimenopause. And the other thing too, by the way, is look for other reasons on why you could be having tiredness,
Mm,
right? So that's one of the things I usually do in my own practice is, okay, yes, you are in the age range of perimenopause, so yeah, this could be it, but let's do some basic labs just to make sure, hey, you're not iron deficient, your thyroid's normal, your
mm.
D is normal. So those are again low lying fruit and mimickers of symptoms of perimenopause. And again, that's the, I would like to say, fun part of is it the, or I should say the, that's the art of medicine,
Okay.
where it is definitely there's that layer of possibly biological, but yeah, we need to look for other things as well. You know, so yeah, to your point, is it's finding a provider, that will listen, that knows what they're doing, and is competent in prescribing estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone based on what your symptoms and what your goals are in your life.
And I just want to reinforce the point you made about finding somebody who listens to you because, and I shared this with you the first time I brought up some of these symptoms to a female doctor, which is surprising that she was female, a year prior to meeting you. And she was very dismissive. Like she was just like, oh, okay, yeah, well, that's normal. That's it. And it is normal, right? But there was no further conversation. And she just, I don't know, she was dismissive. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't bring, I don't know, because I very rarely go to a doctor. So when I did and bring this up and was dismissed, I was like, oh, okay. And a female, like, I think I was just surprised. So, again, somebody then had talked about you, but it is important if you go to the first person and you feel like you are being dismissed for whatever reason, then find somebody else to talk to. I think that's definitely an important point
The
because we
sad
just,
statistic I've heard is it takes a woman 6 to 7 providers before finding someone that will help them with their
ugh,
perimenopause and menopause symptoms. Nobody has time for that.
no, no, no.
But your point, like if you ask one time and you get gaslighted, right? You ask the second time and you get, I don't know, gaslighted and dismissed. Like the desire to ask for help, I think, gets lower and lower.
Sure. Yeah. You're
And
like,
then
oh, okay.
you feel like you're just crazy and must be all in your head, and you should just suffer through it. And that's the thing. Like, yes, it is, perimenopause is absolutely 100% a natural transition, but there is no medal for suffering,
Mm.
right? There's no medal. Okay. What do we know? It will average last for 4 years, but for some women, it could last 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
10 years. Like, this is not like, oh, deal with it for 10 years. Like, that's like, who would say that? Like,
Right.
nobody would want to deal with symptoms that affect your quality of life personally, your quality of life at work, right? I mean, and we know, statistics wise, just because we're talking, this is a business podcast, like, there is data that women with untreated symptoms of perimenopause, menopause, 1 in 3 women have considered cutting hours or stepping back from leadership
Mm.
because of untreated symptoms. Let's see here. There is 2 out of 5 women considered finding a new job due to their untreated symptoms.
Oh, wow.
Okay. 1 in 4 did not pursue a leadership opportunity because of their untreated symptoms. Okay. And the reality is there's like 1.3 million women go into menopause each year and perimenopause. There's a lot of us.
There's a
So
lot of us.
that's
Yeah.
why if you think of that kind of statistic and then think about the lost productivity, the lost revenue really
Sure.
for untreated perimenopause and menopause, that is the impact. So I think the key there is treatment, right?
Right.
Get treatment, get help, because you don't have to suffer.
No, I love that. And I will attest that it has definitely helped. And, I think HRT through the years, I think people are starting to understand that a little bit more. And again, my Facebook ads are always
It's
promoting.
listening. Facebook is listening.
Facebook is listening. They're always promoting, different services and hormone replacement therapy. So hopefully people are catching on, like, this isn't, because it sounds, when you say hormone replacement therapy, it sounds so dramatic, right? Like, I don't know, it just because I don't know. So it's the education behind, like, hey, it's not a big deal. It's taking some pills, or having a patch or whatever it is. And I do love that I keep seeing more people talk about the patch, which I think it makes it feel a little less daunting or scary. So, and of course, everyone's plan is customized and individualized for what they need. But besides HRT, are there other things that we should be doing that help us get through this
Absolutely.
time?
Yeah. And I think it depends. There's so many things that we can do. So again, in my practice, I talk about what we call the 4 M's. So meals, movement, mind, and meds. So
Hmm.
hormone therapy falls under the med component, right? And how you would tailor that really depends on what the symptom is. So for example, what's bothering the patient and what are their goals. So for example, if the issue, let's just say brain fog, or brain fog. Are there ways that we can eat, fuel our body with the right ingredients that will help with concentration, brain
Hmm.
fog? Yeah, omega 3. So making sure we have omega 3 sources in our diet. So usually 2 to 3 servings of like salmon, tuna, sardines per week. You'll get your recommended omega
Hmm.
3. That's from diet alone. Now, some people don't like fish, so consider taking an omega 3 supplement. It's fine. Movement. Movement is so important, right? Whether it's cardiovascular exercise, whether it's strength training, and both of those types of exercise has been shown to actually improve brain function. There's something called BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor, where
Hmm.
basically it's like growth in a way, like helps the brain cells kind of become healthy. Those are activated by exercise. So mind is, how do we handle stress? Part of a big part of what I do is, is what are you thinking? Evaluating cognitive behavioral therapy. What are you thinking? Like, is that true? Right? Like, kind of using the power of coaching to understand our thoughts, and is that helpful and stuff? And is it serving you? Is it even true? So yeah, there's so many things, right? So for sleep, so just so you know, I'm gonna just go ahead and I'm very open about my own perimenopause story. My kryptonite was sleep.
Hmm.
Like for me, in my late 30s, I just had trouble falling asleep. I would wake up at 3 a.m. And again, at that time, I was the head of my career. Okay,
Hmm.
so I'm like, oh, I must just be stressed. That's why I'm waking up in the middle of the night. So I went down, because as a physician, I have access to kind of regular treatment. So I did counseling. I did medication for anxiety because I just thought I was anxious.
Yep.
I also deep dove into something called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia.
Hmm.
I'm trained in that. Again, that's where using the power of your mind and recognizing how to change behavior when it comes to sleep. I did the whole alternative medicine route, like ashwagandha, rhodiola, lavender. I did all of that. So again, I'm not saying all of, so they, to a certain extent, all help, right? They're all good. Counseling is good. I think everybody should have a counselor,
Hmm.
like,
Right.
but for me, particularly in my case, hormone therapy really helped me because it was the biology, it was the
Hmm.
missing piece for me. And I think the other parts, coaching, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, they all help me, kind of like the puzzle pieces.
Makes sense. And I love the conversations and the recommendations around like eating and it's funny so much again I see about lifting weights and how important it is for strength training, how, cardio is great, but you need to lift weights as you get older for more than just your memory, for bone and everything else. So it's
100%.
it's like
Yes.
doing that stuff's not gonna be bad, right? Like that's not going to come out 10 years or 100 years from now that, oh, you guys should have not been eating so well, or you should not have been
Right.
lifting weights, right? Like that's stuff that's going to stick, that has just an overarching impact on your health and just how you feel, right? And we've talked about this on this podcast before. If you don't feel good, you don't feel your best, you're not going to show up and be your best, whether it's professionally or, with your family or friends or whoever it is. So it's controlling the things that we can control and eliminating the things that we can eliminate that impact all that are going to have that effect
Yes.
on us.
Right. But I did want to say, just because we do always say that, we always say to patients, eat better, exercise, right? But if you are struggling with perimenopause and you're literally like exhausted, like making yourself like, you know what I mean? Like making yourself exercise feels such a struggle,
Oh,
like
true.
for a lot of my patients. So when we give back hormone therapy, when we give back hormones that your body naturally produces, it that's when my patients suddenly feel, okay, I have energy now. Oh my
Mm,
gosh. Oh, I can sleep now. So when I sleep, I feel more energetic in the morning. So right. So part of, I guess what I wanted to also say, sometimes it is not just about powering through. If
sure.
there's a biological reason why XYZ is hard, yeah, maybe because you're in peri.
That is such a great closer. And the powering through thing, I think, is so important to reinforce, because we just think we can power through. We think we are too busy to make an appointment because we have to take everybody else's, priorities over our own. And it's not powering through, and it's prioritizing yourself, because if you don't feel good, you're not going to be able to take care of your family, your kids, do a great job at work, all those pieces. So hence how this all ties together so beautifully when again, you like women in leadership, yeah, we're all impacted. And those numbers that you shared are staggering. So let's, take the time to prioritize ourselves first and feel
100%.
better. Feel better. Amen. Thank you, Dr. Troutman.
Yes,
To
yes.
just be able to function in your life. So I appreciate everything you have done for me, and definitely I'm sure all your patients feel the same. So
It's
thank
the
you for
best job in the
sharing.
world. I'll
I
tell you
know.
right
I was
now.
thinking that. I'm like, you have a cool job. Like you help people sleep. You help people feel better. That's so awesome. Where can our listeners connect with you and find out more information?
Yes. So my medical practice is in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. It's called Midlife Remedy, REMDY. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram. My website is full of information and resources that your listeners can kind of check it out. And yeah, I'm seeing patients. And for those that are very busy, right, I have openings next week. Right.
Oh, perfect. And you start
So,
off virtually, right? So it's even easier.
yeah,
You don't even have to drive anywhere.
as long as you're in the state of Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Okay, had to be in Pennsylvania. Good to know. Good to know. No, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, and we'll connect all that in the show notes. And thank you so much for being here, and thank you for helping women.
Thank you for having me. It is the best job in the world. And this is why I'm here.
Love
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Here's what I hope you take away from this conversation. You may have real stress in your life. You may be carrying a demanding job, a family, aging parents, a business, or all of it at once. But that does not mean stress is the entire explanation of why you suddenly feel exhausted, anxious, unable to sleep, or just unlike yourself. And it certainly does not mean you are losing your edge. Perimenopause is a normal biological transition, but as Dr. Troutman said, there is no medal for suffering. You do not have to keep powering through, blaming yourself, or accepting that this is just simply how you feel. Start by paying attention to what has changed. Find a provider who understands perimenopause and is willing to listen. Ask questions. Explore the options that are right for you. Prioritizing yourself is not selfish and it is not separate from being a strong leader. When you feel better, you are better able to show up for your work, your family, and your life. You can learn more about Dr. Troutman and Midlife Remedy through the links in the show note. And remember, this is common. This is worth talking about, and you do not have to figure it out alone. Until next time, stay loud and stay lifted.